Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. In the last part, we started off our combat against Team Rocket here at Goldenrod Radio Tower and had to go through a little bit of a distraction over at Goldenrod Tunnel. But now that we have the card key from the real director, we can begin our climb up to the end of this sequence. Also, speed up theme for this part doesn't get used too much, but it's the Marble Gallery theme from Symphony of the Night. I love that entire soundtrack. Slightly cool thing, by the way, more or less every fight after that first one in this segment is boss fights. Hey, Proton. Now wait just 1 second. Aren't you the one who got in our way at Slowpoke Well? I see. You're doing all this because you want to make me angry. Be careful. But since you seem to wish it, I'll show you the full extent of a Team Rocket executive's wrath. Round 2 against Proton, who we haven't seen since, what, part 4, part 5, somewhere around there. Starting off, he throws out his Golbat, Inner Focus Burst ability, Wing Attack, Confuse Ray, Leech Life, and Bite. It's a Golbat. You've seen these before. Confuse Ray can be annoying, but a good Thunder Attack can take this thing down pretty quickly. You know, I've done a lot of talking in this LP, especially the last 2 parts or so, about how boss fights are structured in Pokemon and how sometimes they just don't feel right, like Petrol's 5 Coughings and all that, but I do want to give credit where it's due. Pokemon has almost always gotten champion fights right in terms of difficulty and team setups, and especially the last couple of generations, they've been doing a good job at making a boss fight that's important feel like an important boss fight, be it against certain types of legendaries, or especially their last couple of champions have been insane. Either way, Proton's second Pokemon is a Weezing, Levitate for its ability, Sludge, Double Hit, Smokescreen, and Smog. Seriously, you chased me this far? Man, we haven't seen you since back then. Any kind of grudge you think I have is just completely undeserved. You know, I never really looked at it carefully, but the Weezing and the Heart Gold SoulSilver sprite, the little offshoot there, really just looks displeased, more so than usual. There's one thing I miss about Pokemon looking back, and I forget if I brought this up already. Doing longer LPs will do this to me sometimes. The sprite work for Pokemon, especially in Gen 5 where it was all animated, genuinely felt so much more alive than some of the character models do in the 3D games. It's kind of sad. They're getting better about it, but only a little bit. Nothing to say immediately? Okay. Hey, free Ultra Ball, I'll take it. You may have won this time, but all you did was make Team Rocket's wrath grow. Cool. Moving on. We're not quite done with boss fights, though. Hey, you. Remember me from the hideout in Mahogany Town? This time. Oh, this time it looks like you're really all alone. All alone. So it should be quite easy. Bring it. Let's finish this. Round 2 against Ariana. Ariana's upgraded her team a little bit this time, in that she's brought 1 new Pokemon to the table. She starts off with the same Arbok, though. Intimidate for its ability, Glare, Crunch, Wrap, and Poison Sting, trying to get you into some consistent damage moves, make you flinch, and hopefully try to stall you. Until Static gets in its way, and therefore it can't really do much of anything. I really have underestimated Static over the years, I won't lie. Back when I was a kid playing, like, Gen 3 period, or playing through the gens growing up, I saw Static and I just went, well, what's the point of that gonna be? And especially as a kid playing Gen 3, there was a real thought process to that because of the pre-physical special split move sets. But it procs more often than you'd expect, honestly. Either way, next up she's throwing out her Murkrow again, Super Luck for its ability, Nightshade, Wing Attack, Astonish, and Pursuit. Pursuit's an interesting attack that doesn't really get a lot of use in casual, just main story Pokemon, I find, because the way that move works is it has a base power that's pretty low, but if the Pokemon that you're attacking switches out while you're about to use it, you'll move first and do extreme damage, and in that regard it can be pretty useful. But the only trainers you'll see generally on a casual playthrough of a Pokemon game that'll switch out are usually, like, late game gym leaders, Elite Four, and Champion, and maybe that's it. Maybe a super boss. Either way, next up she's throwing out her third and final Pokemon. This is her Vileplume. Chlorophyll for its ability, so it'll move faster in sunlight. Sweet Scent, Mega Drain, Acid, and Sleep Powder. And Vileplume itself is a new Pokemon if memory serves. This evolves from Gloom when exposed to a Leaf Stone. Grass Poison type, so it is weak to Flying, Fire, Psychic, and Ice. This is my preferred Oddish final stage. Very high special attack, decent special defense stats, and decent physical stats on top of that. With the moveset it learns, especially prior to Gen 4, this is the de facto Oddish stage for me. In fact, I think even today, most of the moves it learns are thankfully special in focus. The biggest problem is, again, Grass Poison can be a bit of a weird thing to work with sometimes in terms of weaknesses, and its movesets that they tend to give those subtypes aren't exactly very conducive to my general playstyle. So, it can be good, it just takes a lot of work in my eyes for how I play the game. With that said, always love the design. Look at that little smile, it knows what it's doing. It's just having a good day. Well, not this one, because this one's being frozen to death, but you know what I mean. Admittedly, a bit of a trapping I find myself falling into a lot in Pokemon. You can see it a bit on effect here. I'll often give moves that are super effective to a specific Pokemon type on a type that attacking Pokemon is very weak to. For instance, Vileplume here, Grass type, so it has Grass type moves. My only Ice move at the moment is on my Water type. I find myself doing that a surprising amount if I can. I guess my mindset is more so that I'm countering something and protecting myself, maybe. This can't be happening. I fought hard, but I still lost. I forget if I talk to these Rocket executives once I've beaten them, but I do believe they have a little more dialogue. Either way, in this elevator. Goldenrod City Radio Tower Elevator. Next stop, Observation Deck. Let's see who's in charge of this whole shindig. By the way, depending on your HP, I would recommend going to go use the Pokemon Center, but if you got water types, you're probably gonna be fine, to be honest. Hello there. Oh, you managed to get this far? You must be quite the trainer. We intend to take over this radio tower and officially announce our comeback. That should bring our boss Giovanni back from his solitary training. We're going to regain our former glory. I will not allow you to interfere with our meticulous plans. Final Team Rocket executive fight. This is Archer, our de facto Team Rocket leader. And I believe they even added him into the Kanto games in Heart Gold, not Heart Gold, Silver. Let's go, Pikachu and Eevee. Starting off, he throws out his Houndour. Early Bird for its ability, Feint Attack, Fire Fang, Bite, and Roar. Early Bird, by the way, makes them wake up more quickly from sleep. Houndour is a Dark Fire type, so it's weak against Fighting, Ground, Rock, and Water, immune to Psychic. High special attack, decently fast, but it's also a first stage Pokemon, unlike its second stage, Houndoom, which evolves at level 24. Still Dark Fire type, so once again, weak to Fighting, Ground, Rock, and Water, immune to Psychic. Very fast, very high special attack, decent physical attack stat too while it's at it. If you're looking for a fire type and you didn't choose the Cyndaquil line at the start of the game, this could do pretty well for you overall. The big problem if memory serves is you gotta wait really late in the game to be able to do it. Barring, I think, maybe use of the Safari Zone, because I think that's how they tried to rebalance how late some Johto Pokemon were found in the original game. Either way, his Houndoom, by the way, still has Early Bird, Feint Attack, Fire Fang, Bite, and Smog, whereas his Coughing, Levitate, Sludge, Smokescreen, Tackle, and Haze. Not even their de facto boss has a fully original cast of Pokemon. Kinda sad. We can't have you getting in the way before news of our resurgence reaches Giovanni. Problem with that, again, you're using a Coughing, which almost everyone on your team has. And even though you're higher level than most of them, I have a full cast of Pokemon that can easily just tear this thing a new one. Although I'll give you this, my choice of moves here isn't exactly ideal, given that I'm falling right into your high special defense. I used to really underestimate the power of especially moves like Smokescreen that lower accuracy. And it's weird too, because one of my earliest run-ins with how stats work in Pokemon and stat lowering abilities in Pokemon was in Johto. No. Forgive me, Giovanni. How could this be? My dreams have come to naught. I was not up to the task after all. Like Giovanni has done before me, I'll disband Team Rocket here today. Farewell. Well, that was ultimately pretty easily resolved. Oh, you've already defeated them? Thank you. Your courageous actions have saved Pokemon nationwide. You're well worth this. Please, take it. And we get a Silverwing. That sounds important. There used to be a tower right here. When the tower was replaced with a radio tower, that Silverwing was found at the top of it. I heard from a friend from Seawood City that you can go down to the cave at Royal Islands when you have a Silverwing. I have to get back to my office. See you. What? Oh, I almost forgot. According to my friend from Seawood City, the legendary Pokemon will not appear if you just go down to the cave at Royal Islands with only that Silverwing. Apparently there's something else you need, or something like that. I wonder what it was. I can't remember. What is it now? Are you expecting something? This is what they call fake out. I really must go back to my office this time. See ya. Okay, thanks for the plot item, I guess. And just like that, it's all over. Say what you will about how later Pokemon games are written, at least it feels like the team plot lines usually have a real climax. And I'll even give that to Gen 3. Gen 3 really started that off well. And then Gen 4 started running with it. But while you're at it, I recommend talking to some NPCs around the radio tower before you leave, because some of them will give you items now that you've cleared Team Rocket. For instance, this is how you get the Sunny Day TM, which, even though I don't use, if you have a Fire type in your party, or a Pokemon that can learn Solar Beam, and that, kind of worth keeping around. More so for setup than anything, and with how I play, that's not exactly my main story thing, but for multiplayer or any higher level play, pretty recommendable. Also recommendable is the Bright Powder. That lowers the accuracy of whatever move the opponent uses on you by an additional 10% to whatever it has. So say if it's a 80% accurate move, it's now 70% accurate. And at that point, it's surprisingly likely to miss. Pokemon is very much a 95% move can miss 40% of the time, depending on your luck. Also, now back at Mahogany Town, because it's time for us to progress onwards, you can now actually use the shop where the Team Rocket HQ was as a shop. They don't really got anything super important. Overall, I'd say the Hyper Potions and the Revives are the best bet. But if you like using Repels to avoid wild Pokemon battles, I could recommend the Super Repels, because the stage of Repels above that costs more than the amount of steps they increase. So stocking up on Super Repels is overall pretty recommendable. But now that we've done all of those cities and the Goldenrod Tower plotline, we can now progress east of Mahogany Town towards our final town in Johto. We're getting down to the wire, at least for a part of it. And we've, of course, got some trainers with some new Pokemon along the way. Now, the Pokemon that this trainer has is particularly a favorite of mine. This is Natu. Psychic flying type, so it's weak to rock, ghost, electric, ice, and dark. Natu is fast and has a high special attack stat, but it's nothing too spectacular in its first form. When it eventually evolves, though, it gets some pretty good stats, and you could theoretically have one of them by now. You just need to go really out of your way to get to a certain portion of the Ruins of Alph. After you've gotten, I think you need at least Strength and Surf to be usable. We'll show off that area later down the road, because I'm not handling Ruins of Alph until near the very end of the LP. Now, what's interesting about this route is, by and large, every trainer is optional. It's kind of the thing they tend to do with some Pokemon routes, is if they put the Body of Water, you can basically skip completely anyone. I know for a fact what this trainer gives you, by the way, if they give you a phone call on your Pokegear, they can give you a random Pokeball after a rematch. And I think they can give you any of the ones you can get through, like, the Goldenrod Department Store lottery, so you can get some good Pokeballs out of that are otherwise kinda hard to find. Time for another new Pokemon, though. This particular trainer has Rhyhorn, the original Pokemon designed. Ground rock type, so it's weak to fighting ground, steel, water, grass, and ice. Grass and water are a 4x weakness, by the way. It's a physical tank, got good HP, good physical attack, good physical defense. It gets even better after it evolves. I've used it a lot. It's probably one of the only ground rock dual types that I tend to use a consistent amount because its particular strengths are very notable, especially because it has a one-hit kill move that are kind of uncommon overall. But if you're looking for someone that can use the moves that ground rocks can, there are potentially better recommendations, but you can't go wrong with it. Now, this route can be a little important for doing minor things that I don't do throughout the game, but particularly Pokédex completion, because I think this is the earliest, barring Safari Zone stuff, that you can find Lickitungs in the wild, same with Tangalas. So if you're looking for those, you can find them on a grass route in the middle of the lake. But I should also note, something I want to highlight, I talked about how Headbutt more or less works earlier in the LP, where any of the trees you can headbutt have, like, a chance of being one that actually has Pokemon, and they have, like, 2 or 3 different groups per route that you can get from them. For instance, in this route, if you want to, you can find Spearows, Apoms. The big thing you can find for me is Heracross, which is a really good bug type that I recommend using. I'll talk more about that down the line when we see one. For now, though, it's time for Weepin' Bell. This evolves from Bellsprout at level 21, still grass poison type, so weak to flying, fire, psychic, and ice. Pretty decent attacker for a grass poison type. Its learn set at times can be a little lagging depending on the generation, but that's because, especially in Gen 3 prior, a lot of Pokemon's learn sets completely sucked. But nowadays, if you're looking for a grass poison, you could do a hell of a lot worse. The biggest problem with it, to me, is that until hidden abilities were introduced in Gen 5, it only learned Chlorophyll. And as someone who never really uses Sunny Day, I just have other grass priorities in that case usually, or poison type priorities. With that said, time for one of my favorite dungeons in the game that I used to really hate. Because before we reach the next city, we got a little bit of a Mount Moon situation going on here. Welcome to the Ice Path. We've heard this song before in the game, I believe, but it's one of my favorite. It's an ice slide puzzle, just like Price's Gym. But you don't have to worry about having to push things around in here. It's entirely trying to figure out where you need to go by bumping into what rocks. And I gotta say, from memory, this is also a lot easier in Heart Gold SoulSilver because you have much more real estate to see on the screen. Because back in the Game Boy Color, you really couldn't see a lot of the screen at once. I'm technically doing a minor sequence break here because you meant to go up there and talk to that guy and realize that what's down here is kind of important. Because down here we got HM07 Waterfall. This, once you get the ability to use it, will allow you to traverse any waterfalls we've seen in the LP, and if you've explored well in all the dungeons we've seen thus far, you've noticed there's one in Mount Mortar, for instance. The item you picked up over there, it was an HM, wasn't it? I'm the one who dropped it, but I want you to keep it. You took the time to get it, right? It contains waterfall. Have fun climbing waterfalls. Me? I still need a new pair of shoes before I can enjoy waterfalls. Waterfall is also particularly interesting because if memory serves, it is also a physical water move. So if you have a high physical attack water type like a Gyarados, I can really recommend using it. I prefer Surf overall, especially because Surf is more useful to use as a traversal move compared to Waterfall, but you could do a hell of a lot worse. And now for a strength puzzle. You don't need to do this is just for items, but we have 4 rocks around here and 4 holes we need to push a respective rock into, and you just need to make sure you don't get it locked into a corner where you can't push it out of. These are overall pretty common puzzles. They've been showing up since even Gen 1, now that I think about it, because Gen 1's Victory Road had this more or less. Just never get used to stop seeing these. Until HMs basically become irrelevant, they are always here. If you mess up, don't worry about it. You can just leave the floor and come back and they'll reset. Once you've pushed a rock into a hole, though, you are good. I believe that rock will never respawn. Now, the ice path is interesting as well in that this is a place you can pretty consistently find ice types. Because you'll usually find a lot of, like, Zubats, Golbats. But you can find Swinubs, Jinxes, and also Delibirds here. Delibird is ice flying, meaning it is weak to rock, steel, fire, and electric. Rock is a 4x weakness, by the way. It's decently fast, but that's about it. This Pokemon never got an evolution. Its stats aren't really anything to learn out. It has a unique ability, a unique attack rather, that throws a presence that can even, I believe, heal the Pokemon in question. but there's not really much to it. It's a cute little Santa Claus Pokemon. I don't even think any of its abilities are super useful. I guess Hustle might be, because that trades accuracy for power. I believe the exact calculation is like a 50% increase in power for like a cut of accuracy by 1/5. So depending on the moves you use, that could be pretty helpful. The only problem is some of the really good moves you might want on that will just make that like a 60% accurate move, and that's just not worth having around at all, I find. The only way I would go for moves that low accuracy is if they're one-hit KO moves, like Sheer Cold or Horn Drill, things like that. The biggest thing with areas like this, I find, is that Pokemon's little sub-dungeons usually don't get a lot of time to really stick in your memory, barring maybe some music. Because if anything, partially because enemy layouts in Pokemon are always, like, usually one Pokemon that you've probably already seen before, a lot of dungeons don't have unique encounters like they would in, say, a Dragon Quest or a Final Fantasy that make them feel like they are important. If anything, the ones that people remember are the ones that give them problems. For instance, Mount Moon with all the Zubats, Dark Cave because it's dark in there. Chartstone Cavern, I guess, gave people a lot of problems from memory. Myself included, because holy hell, that place has a level curve. But they never really stand out, is what I mean. And there's nothing wrong with not exactly standing out, but it definitely can feel a little off. Oh, yeah, now I look at it, even you only need to do 3 of the rocks upstairs to get to the next floor. One of them is just to get an item. Cool. Rock Smash is handy to have here. So you're damn right I have it. Knowing this was here, I brought Rocky along. At this point in the LP, I really do just switch between having Scott and Rocky in my party just so I can have access to either Cut or... And right now, Rock Smash, Rocky eventually also gets the ability to use a Strength on their own, because I eventually take that off of Dove for reasons. Not that you can take HMs off at the moment, but you will be able to in like 5 minutes, because it's the move deleter who can remove HMs is in the next town. Avalanche is an interesting move. It's an example of a decreased priority move, whereas there's increased priority moves that automatically go first unless a higher priority move is used, like Quick Attack and Extreme Speed. Avalanche is decreased priority, so using it makes you go second. And if the opponent damages you before you use it, it gets doubled to... Its strength gets doubled to, I believe, 120 power, and it's a physical Ice-type move, so if you have a Pokemon that can learn it, it can be pretty good. And hey, it'll always hit. The big thing is sometimes Pokemon will just try to use status moves, so you can be a little bit of, pulling a little bit of a gamble for that. But especially if you have, like, a Feraligatr, for instance, that can learn it, I would really recommend putting that on them. Because since Feraligator's not too fast anyway, you're not going to lose out on the priority. I like it a lot. With my current Pokemon setup, it's not exactly the best, but it can be good. But we're approaching the end of the Ice Path. It's not a very big dungeon. I do, by the way, use all the... Oh, hi again, by the way. I do use almost all the EV boosting items like Carbos and stuff in the background, by the way. Usually on Pokemon that you need it, like, if it boosts attack, I'm probably putting it on, like, Kenny or the final Pokemon to join my team. Stuff like that. Either way, let's get out of here. But first, you need to get out of my way. Me, oh my. Is that you, Kyle? Fancy meeting you here. To tell the truth, my sandals are frozen on the ice and I'm stuck here. In other words, my flip-flops are quick frozen to the ground. Well, it's no laughing matter. Would you push my back? Sure. Shove! You really are kind. Thank you so much. You keep showing up. Are you okay? You seem to be going on a journey yourself, even. And with Ice Path done, we're automatically in the next city. Welcome to Blackthorn, home to our final gym. But also the move deleter and a couple of other important things. With that said, we're not entering the gym this part. I have more important things to do. Namely, The route directly to our south, which we're going to be spending, I think, a decent chunk of next part completely focused on, has something I very much recommend doing. Oh, this is also where you can use the Move Tutor. The Move Tutor can teach any Pokemon moves you've forgotten or ignored along the level path, but you need heart scales to do it, and you can get those through a couple of methods. I think like some of the lotteries, the Battle Frontier, you can get them in, I believe, and I want to say sometimes they can be given out as rare prizes at some point in the week, or by someone you can give your Pokegear to, or your Pokegear number to. The one on the right's interesting, that he'll teach the ultimate types of a move to certain Pokemon, namely the starters. These are moves like Blast Burn. They're sort of just the elemental hyper beams in a way. For instance, Blast Burn is 150 power, 90 accuracy, 5 PP. But after you use it, you have to recharge. So you're sort of going for a potentially lower DPS, but a quicker one-shot. So against a less tanky Pokemon, it can be pretty good. But not too much to my tastes. Welcome to Route 45, though. There are quite a few good Pokemon you can catch on this route, no matter the version, including a Fanfy and Donphan, if you're playing Heart Gold, but I'm interested in what's here in SoulSilver. So it's time for us to run around and find some new Pokemon. In fact, we find all three of the new ones while I'm looking for the one I'm really looking for. Starting off, you can find Gravelers here. Graveler evolves from Geodude at level 25. Rock ground type, so it is weak to fighting, ground, steel, water, grass, and ice. Water and grass are 4 times weaknesses. High physical defense, high physical attack. Gets better when it evolves. The problem is its evolution is a trade evolution, so if you're playing single player, you're a little out of luck. The big problem to me is that most of the things it's weak to are special oriented more often than not, and that low special defense just does not do it any favors. I've used them before, not in my favorites pool, let alone favorites that have trade evolutions. The big problem especially is if you're doing some level grinding around here, you're going to run into these a lot, and they will very often have self-destruct in the wild, which means, hey, you get an automatic win, but you're probably going to have the Pokemon you're using faint, and any EXP you're trying to get on them is completely wasted. Next up, we run into, and I am cutting out some excess fights, by the way, because I'm just looking for the important things, is Skarmory. I used this Pokemon back in my Crystal LP. Steel Flying type, so it is weak to Fire and Electric, immune to poison and ground, very high defense, decently fast, and it can do some physical attacks well. I like it myself, but it can be kind of tricky to use, especially when it had kind of bad learn sets prior to this gen. If I didn't use a Crobat, I probably would have used a Skarmory. This kind of goes into the reason I'm looking for the third Pokemon on this route, though. I haven't talked about it so far in the LP, but I have a rule I like to call the 2/3 rule, where in any given Pokemon game, I like to use 4 Pokemon on my team that are new to that region, including regional variants, and then 2 from any prior region. And you can even reflect this in my current team setup. If a Pokemon got a new evolution along the way, that counts for the new stuff, for instance, Crobat. And here on this route, you can find Teddiursa. Normal type, so it is weak to fighting, immune to ghost. Decent physical attack, but it doesn't got much going for it at the moment. But when this thing evolves, you get a serious physical Pokemon that can bring the pain, even if it is pretty slow. Its learn set's great. The only problem is it can never really do anything super effectively because it's normal type. But it's a matter of, to me, jack of all trades, master of none. But still better than a master of one. I love this thing, its evolution. In a way, Heart Gold got the better Pokemon here with Donphan and Fanfy, but Teddiursa, I love this thing. It's joining my party. And if you look at my party right now, I'm even reflecting the 2/3 rule. The only Pokemon I have from prior regions are Haunter and Vaporeon. I am also trying throughout my LPs to not use the same Pokemon twice, barring Vaporeon because it's just one of my favorites and it's just decently a good water type. By and large, I'm going to have something different in every single main Pokemon LP. Welcome to the team, Kuro. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 16, we're going to enter a very familiar location up here in the northern portion of Route 45, and explore it before finally heading towards our gym battle. See you guys then.